peace, and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, folks. We are broadcasting live from Los Angeles, and today we got a great show for you. First and foremost, let's talk about how there is a fight to establish an office for missing and murdered Black women. This is based upon the Brittany Clardy Act. We're going to talk about the importance of preserving and protecting the life and the overall sustainability of Black women in the country. So we'll have that big conversation. Also, later on, let's talk about T.I. and his son controversy, talking about Nepo babies and relationships. So we'll have the latest, and I want to get your take, crew, on what you think of that. And then today is Giving Tuesday. What Black organization are you going to give to today if you haven't already? So we'll talk about that. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, it is Tuesday, November 28th. We are live once again, and I appreciate you for tuning in. Big shout out to the online culture crew as they are checking in right now on Roland Martin's YouTube page. There we go. They are checking it in. That's right. That's right. But they're checking in all across the country, and folks are checking in, folks. And I see my pastor, Pastor Damon Bassett. Peace and blessings, Brother Damon. Karen Carter, my sister, thank you so much, as always, for your support, Sister Karen. Andrea Malloy Gillespie, thank you for checking in as well. Deidre Hall, I see you. Deidre, how are you? Hope you had a great Thanksgiving break. Cindy D, my sister, good to connect with you once again. My sister Tiana's checking in here. I like to see Tiana in the chat, always bringing something thoughtful to the conversation. My brother Conscious Thought is here. King's Kid is here as well. And more folks are checking in as we are starting the show. And folks, we are broadcasting live on all of our platforms, and starting with our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Go to our website today, download the app for free, and follow us on social media and be a part of this digital movement that we are embarked upon. Also, we're streaming right now on Amazon News on your Fire TV. We're also streaming on Amazon Prime Video. You can find us on Prime Video app under Live TV, the news, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video, Live TV, the news. And we're on Freevee. You can find us there 24 hours a day on now under news, as well as Plex TV, 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. There we go. So big shout out to all of our distributors. But folks, let's jump into the conversation as we first kick it off, talking about how there is an effort by one congressional member for the White House, for the federal government, to establish a new office for missing and murdered Black women. And this is coming out of the offices of Representative Ilhan Omar. And Representative Ilhan Omar is the representative for Minnesota's 5th district. And she is championing the establishment of this office based upon the act, the Brittany Clardy Act, which is named after an 18-year-old Black woman that was found murdered in the trunk of her car in Omar's state of Minnesota in 2013. And it would help to spearhead efforts to counter the racial disparities in violence. So there is now an effort now, of course, by Representative Omar and others who are pushing for there to be more done in talking about protecting the life and the livelihood of Black women. Also, along with that, you all remember, in the state of California, they have the Ebony Alert, which is a brand new alert system. California is the first state to actually put this alert system in order and use it, hoping with other states to follow, basically rooted in finding missing Black women and children, as well as part of the Ebony Alert. It's something that's more dedicated to Black folks. Now, we already know about the Amber Alert, but the Ebony Alert is for us to have more visibility, more awareness about the epidemic of missing Black women, missing children. So that is happening. But going back to this piece around establishing this office for missing and murdered women, this is something that we know is a huge, huge problem. Let me share this from what Representative Omar had to say from her site, and then we want to bring in our special guest. But she's mentioned this, talking about the Brittany Clardy Act. Take a look at this. It's named, again, as I mentioned, after 18-year-old Brittany Clardy, who was found murdered in the trunk of her car in Minnesota in 2013. Those efforts include conducting research and collecting data, developing policy, and providing federal grants to local organizations providing quote unquote culturally appropriate services to victims or impacted families. Now, according to the Congresswoman, she said, I don't think of this as just a piece of legislation. I think of it as a beacon of hope for Black women and girls across the nation. We are not only going to address this alarming disparity in violence, but we are affirming our commitment to ensuring that every Black life is valued and protected. Now, according to a study published by the Research and Action Organization, more than 60,000 Black women and girls are missing in the US. Black women are also twice as likely to be victims of homicides. Wow. So I wanted to talk about this and have a big culture convo about this, folks. We are joined by our very special guest. I want to first welcome Dr. Karen McLean, who is an associate professor and department chair for the Department of Social Work at Western Connecticut State University. And Dr. McLean, I truly, truly appreciate you for joining us to be a part of this big culture convo about missing and murdered Black women. First and foremost, Dr. McLean, talk to us about this particular act and why this is so important to even have an office like this.
Well, again, I want to thank you all for inviting me into the conversation.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, when Black women and Black girls are murdered, it doesn't get the same type of response. It doesn't garner the same type of attention. When you hear about it, it's a blurb on the news, and it might stay on the news for a couple of days, and then it disappears. And it's so important to be able to enact legislation that can really delve into looking at how these murders are occurring, being able to keep accurate data and stats, being able to have a clearinghouse, as well as potential funding to organizations that are already on the ground doing this type of work to track and to monitor and to kind of raise the awareness of the rates of gender-based homicide, particularly focused on Black women and girls.
So this is something that has been needed for a very long time. But I'm wondering now with this Brittany Clardy Act, if it's going to propel this opening of this office that Representative Omar has been trying to get. And I just want to mention, folks, that we also had reached out to Representative Omar's office to be a part of today's conversation. However, she was not able to join, but she did let us know that she would love to come on to the show to talk about this effort and some of the other works that she's doing. So just wanted to throw that out there as we have this discussion. But do you see that this act is going to push the needle, especially given, Dr. McLean, the contentious nature of our politics and the ongoing conversations that we have about the idea of protecting Black women and girls?
Well, certainly we know that the meter has been raised as it relates to the experiences of Black women, from the not being heard and not being taken seriously when Black women are experiencing pain in medical situations. So, I'm always the optimist, and I'm hoping that this is going to kind of raise the bar and that other states will follow suit, in addition to hoping that the federal policy is legislated. We know that there are organizations that are boots on the ground in terms of trying to monitor and to watch and to, to make this issue as important as other issues related to gun violence is, because we know that there's a debate around policing and the policing of Black bodies and in Black communities, and what's happening with the mass killings. Unfortunately, when all of those issues are raised, the issue of femicide, which is what the technical term is for the disproportionate rates of murder among women, what's happening with Black women in the communities, it gets kind of pushed to the side in light of some of these other larger political issues. And we really need to continue to raise the bar, because, you know, we don't, it goes without saying that, you know, I hate to use the word endangered species, but, you know, Black women are at in extreme risk.
And you know, we got to take our first pause, but when we come forward, Doc, getting your take on just the numbers, the statistic, and more importantly, the cultural implications of this. Because when you see stories like Carly Russell and other stories like the sister that was supposedly been hit by the brick by a group of Black men, some people are now putting up the justification, or rather the excuse, that Black women need to be double checked on their stories. Black women, we can't always believe what a Black woman says when something goes wrong. So I want to kind of get your take on that, and that's of course not coming from white community. That's coming from within our own community, Dr. McLean. So I want to kind of get your take on that. And we're also going to be bringing in another voice, Dr. Tawana Gilliard, as well, to be a part of this conversation. Folks, we're just heating up right here on The Culture. Big culture convo with around this idea of establishing a missing and murdered Black, an office for missing and murdered Black women. Crew, share your thoughts with us. Post your comments on Roland Martin's YouTube page. Let me hear what you got to say about this idea. And if you think Representative Ilhan Omar is on to something great here with pushing the White House to establish this particular office. So we'll get your take. We'll continue to talk our conversation with the doctors and a whole lot more. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. And the conversation is rolling right now. Speaking of which, on Roland Martin's YouTube page, you can join the culture crew, the online culture crew for the day. Or if you just love the energy there, we got a lot of good energy. Make sure you tune in. But join the culture crew for the day. Be a part of the chat and be a part of the conversation as we talk about today's big culture convo, which is around this idea that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota has put forth for the White House to establish a specific office, folks, for missing and murdered Black women. We have been talking to our first guest, Dr. Karen McLean, Associate Professor and Department Chair for the Department of Social Work at Western CT State University. And we are also now joined by Dr. Tawana Gilliard, who is an educator, but she's also a board certified OBGYN. She's a published author of her debut book, On the Other Side of Greatness, Lessons on the Journey from Six-Figure Debt to Seven-Figure Success. And she is a motivational speaker. So, Dr. Tawana Gilliard, thank you so much for joining us here. And of course, Dr. McLean, we appreciate your time as well. Dr. Tawana, as we talk about this situation of establishing an office of this magnitude, of this significance, first and foremost, do you think that it can be established before the next election? Is this something that we need to advocate for before the 2024 presidential election?
I say bravo to her efforts, and I truly think we need to push for that to happen. Anytime where there can be light shined upon the issues that are happening in our communities, especially our women, I think it's important to take a stand with that. You know, as an obstetrician gynecologist, I see how women of color are targeted, how our morbidity and mortality is almost 3 times higher than our counterparts, non-Hispanic whites. And a lot of that has to do because we're not valued, we're not heard, and we're not seen. And so anytime there's a platform where advocacy can be a part of that, and teaching ourselves and changing the mindsets of our communities first, and then spread that out elsewhere, I think it's definitely necessary and definitely needed, because we are being targeted on all sides, you know, not just in medicine, but in these situations where we are targeted and murdered or killed, and no one seems to think that we're important.
So, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Dr. Gilliard, because it feels like, you know, this is a inside house type of conversation with our community, right? When we saw all of the situations like with Carly Russell, with her story of seeing a baby on the side of the road, when we see the sister that got hit with the brick, when we hear these stories, I mean, of course, these stories are outliers, right? These are anomalies. They don't just happen every day. Right. But for some reason, Dr. McLean, I want to get your take, and then Dr. Gilliard, I want to get your take. For some reason, folks have used that not as the exception, but they have used that as the rule, right? Oh, man, you can't trust these Black women. You can't. Man, they don't say it. Some folks say it on, man, but I know underneath of all of the chatter that we see on social media, Dr. McLean, it comes down to, do we as Black folks want to, you know, see the value of the Black woman? Do we as Black men and other Black women, do we see the value of protecting and preserving the life and the livelihood and believing the word of a Black woman? Dr. McLean, what's your take?
Yeah, I think this is one of these issues that has been a struggle within our community about the reaffirmation and the celebration of Black women. Oftentimes, the relationship between us and our Black males, it's kind of politicized, ostracized. You know, you have these visuals and this conjecture about Black women when we stand up for our rights, that we're bees and that we are aggressive, and we have the right as women to express as much emotion as we choose. We have the right to be angry. We, as Black women, we even politicize when we do express emotion, and some of the emotion and our assertiveness and our passion, the things that make us as vibrant as we are, sometimes is played against us. And we certainly have to continue to fight and to continue to celebrate and to affirm ourselves and our place within our Black communities, because as Black women, we are the base in community work. In communities, we hold down the families. We
Mm-hmm.
are the cooks. We are the organizers. We are the rearers. We are the lovers. And we just have to continue to kind of stay away from some of the chatter around the politics between the gender, and really lift up and continue to affirm ourselves and our space, and to stay away from some of the other aspects that divide us. We have, as a community, we have so many other issues that we have to work collaboratively with. We need not be fighting with our own counterparts and our own people about our space and our role and our value.
And Dr. Gilliard, to Dr. McLean's point, I mean, that really weakens the case when we do have real situations, right? Especially in big cities. I mean, I've watched enough documentaries around just missing girls and women in general, and how in big cities and small towns across this country, police officers do not put the necessary resources, they do not pay the proper attention when a Black woman or any woman of color or a little girl goes missing in this country. There's often, if it's a young girl, she's often labeled as a runaway, or she's just a teenager gone bad. If it's a grown woman, they often kind of put her as if she's a sex worker, some sort of prostitute, or she's, what did she do? She might have mental health. There's not a lot of resources in that part of the conversation. What's your take on that?
Well, first, I want to say how when she talked about how we have to get away from the chatter.
Yeah.
Like we have to really hone in and go back deep and to understand how some of the miseducation of the Negro, how some of these thought processes, how we got to this point, own our past, own our history in this country, and understand that we have to do a complete reset on our mindset, how we look at ourselves. For generations, we were taught that we were less than, that we were not beautiful, that we didn't have value. And we have to own why do Black women act the way we act? Because we've had to be the pillars. We've had to be the strength. And I truly believe we have to go back to nurture the source. I truly believe that women are the foundation. And if it's cracked and flawed, how can the house be built? And once we build the woman back up, who carries the womb, who carries life, then we rebuild those relationships with the Black man, who has also had a very rough time in this country. I know we're focusing on women right now, but I think it's important that we do a lot of the work within ourselves to be able to promote a more positive image from our own mouths so that we can be heard as a community to bring about change. And I really think it needs to start.
Absolutely. Janelle, you checked in, my sister. You said people refuse to believe that actual targeting occurs, but how else can these statistics be explained away? This is not just an inside conversation. Misogynoir is real and too prevalent, period. So is Janelle on the right? Is this a target? Do you see this as being a targeted situation, Dr. McLean?
Definitely, I would definitely support the notion that we do have misogynoir. This is kind of like, going back to the doctor's point about these conversations that we don't have, the in-house, the private conversations. We don't discuss house business out in the public. So we actually absolutely have to reconcile with the fact that we do have those experiences where women are relegated even within our own communities as less than. And it really is about having that kind of real raw conversation with our Black community, our Black men, about who are we and what is the role that we play and how do we work together and how can we debunk some of these stereotypes and these myths about the quote unquote the strong Black woman, which becomes something to applaud and then something that you kicked on at the same time. So
So
absolutely, we have to really.
Dr. McLean, how do you have that conversation with your students?
I mean, the first thing, I believe in being real about it, and I understand that, my students respect the transparency. So, I acknowledge first that, this is typically a conversation that I wouldn't have in public because we're socialized not to have those kind of discussions. And then, when we start talking about situations that occur, if we're talking about Black families, that there was sexism within, even when we talk about civil rights movements, when we talk about things, social movements that happened within our community, that there was this role of sexism and the role of women and what the role of women should have been. Historically, it was like women were supposed to be in the kitchen cooking and being supportive. And we know that women were right out there on the front lines and delving really deep into these issues and breaking it down so students understand that it's very complex, but a much necessary conversation and a piece to dissect in understanding relationships. If they are looking at Black relationships, you have to understand that there's that role. And then, you get, sometimes a lot of Black women, we get these messages, even when you're seeking a partner, if you're seeking a male partner, that, you have to kind of take a subservient role. And what does that look like? The man being the head of the household, that juxtaposed against people who may be more aligned with feminist thought. What does that look like? Do you have to fall back to make that man the leader? So those are very nuanced and very complicated conversations. And many of us were socialized along those lines. So then, really trying to address like what that dissonance looks like in your own kind of identity development and your relationship development.
I love that. I think you're absolutely right. Tiana checked in and said 80,000 Black girls 20 years or younger went missing in 2022 alone. 80,000. That's a lot of families. And I know we got to take another quick pause, but Dr. Gilead, I want to kind of get your take because I feel like there's also a generational component to this where we're seeing, and I'm glad Tiana brought this up, but we're seeing that maybe younger women, Black women, are taking or making riskier decisions to put themselves in harm's way. And I'm not blaming the victims. This is not victim blaming, but maybe we need to have this part of the conversation is like, I'm not trying to control you and rule your life, but at the same time, whether you're talking to your spouse, whether you're talking to your woman partner or significant other, whether you're talking to your daughter or your niece, and how do Black girls make sure, and Black women make sure that they don't put themselves in risky situations that will possibly lead them into a place like this? And so, Dr. Gilead, I'd love to get your take on that. Crew, I would love to get your take as well. Stay with us. The conversation continues as we talk about missing and murdered Black women, the establishing a possible office, a national office for this issue on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, We're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We've been having a dynamic conversation with Dr. McLean, Dr. Karen McLean, as well as Dr. Tawana Ogilia, as we talk about this idea that Representative Ilhan Omar has proposed, where the White House would establish a special office for missing and murdered Black women. And when we look at the numbers, folks, whether you're looking at from last year or this year, it shows that something needs to be done to stop this epidemic of our women and our girls being missing and even murdered within our communities. I want to also bring Kimberly Morrow into this conversation. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us, and I appreciate your patience. You are an educator, but you also have been doing this work of making sure that Black women are seen and heard in many different spaces. Talk to us. What's your take on where we are with this part of the discussion, trying to institutionalize saving and protecting Black women and girls?
Wow. So first of all, thank you for having me back on your show. I'm very happy.
Absolutely.
You know, as I was listening to everyone give their take on this, what I kept picturing and seeing in my head were conversations that I've actually had with students and parents. It's amazing when so as you said, I've kind of, been in this space, as a principal. I would have these conversations with parents and students, and a lot of times, I had several students who had been labeled as runaways, and they had not run away. They had actually been taken, and so just to listen to this and thank God for Ilhan Omar for presenting and proposing this bill. And I really hope that others jump on board and see the value and how important it is to get this passed. And we really can't wait to the 2024 election. We need to get on this now. Part of the work I do is to empower families and empower parents and students. And I heard one of the questions you asked about how can we help these young people make less risky decisions. And right. I heard what you were saying. I'm not blaming the victim, but at the same time, there still needs to be some accountability and responsibility. And I agree with that. Not to say that every child or woman that comes up missing was doing something to
right.
put themselves in that position, that they were somehow demonstrating some type of risky behavior. That is absolutely not the case. There are some women who are just out shopping just going to their front door and get accosted. So definitely that's not what we're saying. So I don't want people to get it, as they say, get it twisted and think that's what we're saying. But there are definitely some situations where a different choice can be made. When I was young, and I have to say I am a few years older than some of our young people today. I get reminded of this all the time by students. Thanks. But back when I was going out in the 80s and 90s, I always had a person who was right there with me, who was watching over me, who was making sure that I wasn't going by myself, or I was never going to be by myself. So we kind of traveled like that, and I don't really see as much of that today. I kind of see friends just kind of allowing the friend to go on their own, and
right.
We just would not do that. I hung a lot with my cousin, and she was not having that at all. She was like, "No, you will not be going by your own." So
and look, and I'm again, this is not, this might kind of crazy coming from me as a man, but I know there are a lot of sisters that are in this space who, and I'm talking about in this day and time, who go across the country. I mean, not across the country, in different parts of the world by themselves. They like doing on these solo traveling trips and into places. And then I'm thinking, Dr. Gilliard, and I'm thinking what you said, Sister Kim. When we're talking about making those choices, this is not about control. This is not about power as much as it is about accountability. And I think that is the hard part, culturally speaking, Dr. Gilliard, that I think a lot of young sisters may not be getting, is that you are a part of a family, you are a part of a community, you are valued, and you are worthy to be worried about. And I feel like that message is not getting to some of these sisters, where they feel like, look, y'all can try to control me, y'all trying to keep me in a box. I'm trying to go out into the world. And I'm like, no, that's cool. But the world can be a very dangerous place too. Talk to me, Dr. Gilliard. I know you got to jump off, but share your thoughts on that.
First, we'll say hello to Kim. We went to college together, so hello, Sarah.
Oh, come on now, sisters, come on. That's awesome. Look how the divine all works together.
I heard the word Sora, so I'm like,
Divine nine.
Divine nine.
But talk to me, Sister Dr. Gilliard. What's your take on that? In terms of those choices, holding sisters accountable to their own selves. How do we approach that as a culture, especially as men?
Well, I want to piggyback on what Dr. Morrow said about how we went in groups and how it was expected of us to roll like that, to be honest. But I think it also goes back to what I've stated. It's time for us to go back to the nucleus in the house, back to the kitchen table. We need to start having more discussions as a family, because that's being lost with all the technologies and the cell phones and the internet. And these kids are being exposed to so much more than our generation was exposed to. And it's important for us to be honest about our own journeys that we travel, because sometimes we had this thing where if I don't tell them, then they won't make the same mistakes I made. No, there's no new mistakes under the sun, to be honest. Mistakes are going to happen. And it's important to let children know that they are valued, even if they make mistakes, even if they have mental health issues, even if they were a prostitute, even if they were on drugs. I think it's important for us to pour value back into ourselves. No one is without fault. And it's time for us to have those deep conversations about health, about mental health, about safety, about money. We have to do it. We have to reset our DNA. We have to reform our thought process on how we look at things and educate our young babies to know what they're putting themselves at risk for. We can't protect them from everything, but knowledge is power. And if you drop that seed, it's bound to grow at some point. So that's what I just wanted to say, to make sure that we start focusing as a people, as our nucleus in our homes, whatever your home may look like. You know, it doesn't have to be the Brady Bunch or the Cosby Show.
I'm about to say the Cosby Show on this side here, Doc. Come on now, we the Cosby Show over here.
Right.
We might be Family Matters and the Parkers and
But whatever your family looks like, just to know that there's value there, and for us to pour into them, to educate them, and for them to understand that mistakes does not diminish their value and does not diminish our love.
I want to get your take. I know you got to jump off with Dr. Gill, but I want to get this very quickly. What role do you see Black boys and Black men helping to create a new culture around the safety and protection of Black women?
I think it's so important, because as women, as a Black woman, I'm ready to lift some of this to give it back to you, brother. I'm ready. And I'm here to support and to gird you up and to let you know that you are king, and that your rightful place is at the head of the household, is at the head of our communities. But slavery did a number on all of us. But it's time for us to stop using excuses. It's time for us to be okay with reevaluating the situation and understand how much power we have to affect change. And Black men and Black boys are so important to look out for us. You know, for us to have that safety back again, to say if a brother come up like, you okay, sister? Everything okay? For us to feel comfortable, for him to feel comfortable to be able to do that, and for us to be able to feel that support that he's there to protect us. So a lot of work has to be done, but why not start today?
Absolutely. Dr. Tawana Gilliard, I truly appreciate your time and joining us today to have this part of the conversation. I look forward to bringing you back. Thank you, sis.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dr. McLean, I want to get your take on that, just kind of adding to what Dr. Gilliard laid out. And this is something that another one of our great culture crew members put it out there. McCole Spicer. McCole said, we have to teach our girls and young women how to have discernment about the company that they keep and how to be safe in their environments, situational awareness. And that is that's a different thing altogether, because unfortunately in our community, and I'm talking about the culture of our community, we look at one person and say, okay, I definitely don't want to be in that person. But it could sometimes be the guys, the homeboys that some of these ladies, some of the girls are hanging out with, the men. It could be other women that are involved in getting a young lady or woman into a crazy situation. So help me understand some of the dynamics and how we can kind of help to undergird some of that.
I think just to piggyback off of some of Dr. Gilliard's points, I know when I was a young woman, I mean, we've had the buddy system.
Right.
When we went out to wherever we were going, people want to talk and mix and mingle and have conversations, but nobody was leaving without the other group or party. And if someone did go out, let's say they went outside, or there was some type of a checks and balances that was in place, like, okay, in 5-10 minutes, you come out, or maybe if they went outside, somebody else was outside. So it was really, what we considered like a buddy system, looking out for each other, was really it, in our young minds, was really a systematic way that we instituted ways in which we checked on each other, making sure that people got home safe. So some of this stuff is almost like going back to the old school,
Right.
And because we have the enhanced technology, I mean, it's using texts, phone calls. I know for those people who did online dating, if they met at the library, you were in the corner of the library too, reading a book to watch, to make sure that things were going okay. So it was really this concept of really the village and looking out for each other. And unfortunately, because of the things that are going on in our society, as young Black girls and Black women, we just have to be hyper vigilant in terms of how we look out for each other, also incorporating the males and others in our community, so that we kind of go back to these foundational systems that still work. And because we do have the advances of the technology, we can do the text checking, and we can do some of the phone calls or some of the other things that we need to do to look out for each other. And I know it's hard being mindful when, with, our younger people, when they're out with their friends, people grown and they want to do what they want to do. But, really, we really have to institute in our young people that we got to be hyper vigilant. You have to be hyper vigilant about your surroundings. If you go out on a trip and you travel, because, girls travel is very, popular, and women go on trips and things like that.
I'm telling you, yeah.
We've got to look out for each other, even though you want to kind of do your thing and I'm doing me. But we have to, we just have to really heighten the sense of community, because we have to keep ourselves safe.
Absolutely. And my brother and Pastor Damon Blissett, he reminded me, he said, Farajii, remember the sister that got beat up and died in Mexico last year when she was out with a group of friends. And I know Sister Kim, with friends like that, you know what I mean, putting you in harm's way. And I mean, I'm not trying to make light of the situation. It's just like, it is so heartbreaking that you have a sister who goes on a girls' trip with homegirls, people that she thinks that cared about her, and then she doesn't return home from that trip. And then the lies start, the investigations start, the speculation start. But there has been no resolution, no justice in the sense of helping us to understand it. And yet we're having these conversations. But it's the hard part is trying to figure out, like, how are we not connecting the dots here? How is that not happening? You work in the school, Kim. I want to get your take on the other side. We got to take another pause. Well, I want to get your take on the other side, and then let's talk about, kind of putting a little bit of wrap up on this part of the conversation, folks. If you're just tuning in, we have been talking to some dynamic sisters to talking about this fight to establish an office for missing and murdered Black women. And this is being led by Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, and how she is putting forth this proposal for the White House to open this special office to preserve the life and the livelihood of Black women and girls. So, folks, we're continuing the conversation on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no
punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home. You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation as we've been having a very, very dynamic discussion about the proposal that Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota has put forth to the American people and to Congress, saying that, look, the White House needs to establish a special office for missing and murdered Black women because of this ongoing epidemic. There has been much conversation about the protection and the overall belief in Black women when things are happening. And as a result of that, we're seeing that there is a high number of missing women, mostly Black, in this country. And so law enforcement agencies are being put on notice. The government is being put on notice, but we also got to talk about the community. We got to certainly can take into consideration that if our culture is not open, is not receptive to having a different conversation about the importance, the value, the significance of Black women, then we can't really have any conversation. You could talk about policy all day. You could talk about policymakers and their personal beliefs, but it still will come down to, and I want to bring in my very special guest, Dr. Kim Norrow, who is an educator, as well as Dr. Let me get my sister's name here. I apologize, dear sister. Dr. McLean, Karen McLean, who is a associate professor and department chair for the Department of Social Work. My thinking is to this point, sisters, that if there isn't a change in us as Black folks, if we don't change the view that we have about the importance of y'all, then policy, new office, none of that is really going to matter. There has to be a huge change in us, in our community, in our culture. Now, some of that can be because you mentioned feminist theory, some feminist ideas earlier, Dr. McLean, but some of the women don't see themselves as a human being that needs to be empowered. We have some sisters who are like, well, you know, these women put themselves in these situations. Or, you know, look, we should be able to do whatever we want to do. And not understanding the impact and the consequences of these types of actions. And I think, Sister Kim, I want to kind of get you your place because you work in a school, so you see where a lot of these things start to germinate, these ideas about value, self-worth, how we see ourselves in society, how society sees us. A lot of that stuff starts to happen when we're in grade school, elementary, middle school, and high school. So share with us your thoughts on this as we trying to get some wrap up on this part of the conversation.
All right, thank you. And I just have to say, I love the conversations. They are always so dynamic and you throw a lot out there. But let me just say this, and I've heard different people say this, and I just want to re-emphasize this. We as Black people, we are not a monolith. We are not. And you are not going to get 100% Black people to say, oh, you know, we value our women. They don't do it in the white community or any other community. In various communities, you will see where the women are not valued. So that's not going to happen. And it doesn't have to happen for us to do this work. It's not necessary for it to happen. We just need enough people to value us as women and children. And as long as, and we have to value ourselves. That's the most important thing. And we get enough voices to value us, and we value ourselves. But I don't see them not doing these Amber Alerts. And you have a good pocket of the white male community who do not believe that white women or women in general are valuable. But yet we still see these Amber Alerts. And so to say that, well, we have to do this in order for us to be seen as valuable, that's just not true. That's not true, and it doesn't happen in other communities that way.
But do you think that, Sister Kim, do you think that if we don't make a fuss about a missing black girl or a murdered black woman, that it will still get the same type of attention that it deserves if we don't make a fuss? Like if it don't happen on black social media, so when do we get that attention?
What I'm saying, Farajii, is 100% of us don't have to agree.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying we don't make a fuss. Absolutely, that's how we get heard. But what I'm saying is we don't have to wait for 100% of us to agree. That's just not necessary. Okay, so that's the point I wanted to make.
And I think that's an excellent point. And right, Dr. McLean, I think that at the end of the day, there is this view that if we're not all on board, that it still can't happen or it shouldn't happen.
Exactly.
And back to what Sister Kim said, we're not a monolith, right?
Right.
I mean, shit, man, we only need 10% of the population. Like, we only need a couple of hundred people. You know what I'm saying? To say, you know what, enough is enough. But see, here's the thing. That if we get even a small number of people to be behind an idea, such as this one, it's going to make a world of difference for everyone.
Right. Correct. Absolutely. And going back to Dr. Kim's point, that change is incremental. So it starts with, and people probably get tired of hearing this, pushing your legislators. This is one thing I can tell you that I, really drive home with my students. Looking at your local people, who are you putting in office, particularly as we're looking at this policy, pushing your local legislators so that you can heighten awareness, because they have this calculation that one email or one letter represents 10 people. So doing, everyone doing their part, whatever that is, to raise the meter. The having conversations. So I said, changes happens in increments. So being able to have conversations with your group, your girl group, your friends, your members of your organizations, church, sororities, fraternities, having these kinds of conversations that can lead to other types of action incrementally so that we can continue to drive momentum. And as Dr. Kim said, yes, you're not gonna get everybody on board all at the same time. And then a lot of this is for some of us as individuals, our own self-work. We've got to look at ourselves in the mirror and appreciate our value, because if I am not providing myself with affirmations every day, then there's no way I'm going to be boots on the ground to help fight the larger cause. So from that individual perspective, for people out there, affirming yourself, starting with yourself, where do you see your value? And taking those steps to say, you know what, I am valuable, because it starts with you. And then when you feel you're valuable, then in turn that raises the bar, and then you get more involved on a larger scale.
Absolutely. Benny Hill, my guy, you said, is this a systemic or community issue? Just for clarification. I think Dr. Kim and Dr. McLean, I think this is both. I think it's both systemic and community, right? I think it starts in the community and then it kind of spreads out to be the systemic issue. But I think it's both. Am I right on that, Sister Kim?
I think you're 100% correct on that. But can I just say, I do appreciate all of you calling me doctor. Thank you so much. But I do not have a doctorate degree.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that.
I have a master's degree.
You have a master's in education.
from
Yes,
a
ma'am.
very esteemed university, Harvard Graduate School of Education, but I am not a doctor, and I don't want anybody to think that I am misrepresenting myself in any way here today.
Oh no, that's a, no, no. You know how we do in the black community, Sister Kim. All right, doctor, go ahead, pass them.
But thank you.
But you're absolutely right, and I appreciate the clarification. But you're saying that this is both a community and a systemic issue. Is that what I'm hearing from you, Sister Kim?
Yes, but you know what? In all honesty, I think it's more systemic than community. To be 100 with you, because here's why: when our children, or when we come up missing, they automatically go. And when I say they, I'm talking about the police who we report it to, automatically assume our children are runaways, or we have somehow decided to walk away from our lives. So that's where the systemic issue comes from. Now, the community issue over the years, where it's kind of like, oh, well, those kids do that. I think the community issue was born out of the systemic issue. I do not believe it was the other way around.
Okay.
Do not believe that.
Okay. Sister Anastasia checked in, and Anastasia Pageant, you said Farajii self-worth starts at home with your mother and father and those that within your circle. We as women need to learn that we are worth something. You have to value yourself first and love yourself. And Dr. McLean, that's what you've been saying this whole process, this whole conversation. It's like you have to find your own self-worth. You have to find a reason to love yourself. Thank you. Great point, Anastasia. Doc, what's your take on that?
Yes, exactly what Anastasia said. You have to value and love yourself. And it sounds very simple when you're hearing it in surface.
Very simple.
And in practice, it is a whole different ball game. Because so many of us are listening to the murmurs, and we're listening to these messages that we have received. I mean, that's a whole separate conversation. We start talking about how the transmission of trauma and historical and intergenerational trauma. That's for another day. But we have to, we definitely have to love ourselves and to begin to respect and appreciate ourselves. So then that way that can transmit out to our circles and to our communities. You're absolutely right. It starts at home.
I want to get your sister's quick take on this as we wrap up this part of the discussion, but I want to get your take as we move forward with establishing this office, and we got a few moments left. What do you recommend for Black America to do to see this idea come into fruition? Sister Kim, what's your take on that?
Oh, thank you. Because I want to piggyback on what Dr. Karen said. You've got to contact your local legislators. Now, I am very pleased that my local legislator, Sydney Kalmager Dove, is actually one of the sponsors of this bill. And also Maxine Waters, who's a district representative in Los Angeles, she's a sponsor on this bill. So number one, you need to download the bill and find out who's a sponsor on it. Maybe your legislator is already a sponsor, but if not, then you need to contact their office and let them know this is something that is important to your community, our community, and when it comes down to it, all of our community, because we are a part of the American community. And so whether your legislator is African American or non-African American, they need to be on board with this. Whether they're Democrat, Republican, or independent, they need to be on board with this. So I would recommend you first find out about the bill and who's sponsoring it, because maybe they already are a sponsor. And if not, then you need to contact them.
Hey, look, you know what? Let's push it. Let's push it for the 24 election. I mean, this is something, if it doesn't look like it's going to happen within the next few months before the election, Dr. McLean, I'm thinking that this needs to be up there along with, if we do something for the sisters with establishing this office, and let's do something for them brothers with pushing this police bill that has yet to be passed, right, where we get some level of police reform. But what other recommendation would you provide, Dr. McLean, as we wrap up on this?
I mean, it goes back to the basics, reaching out to your local people, getting familiar with the website. You can Google and get to the website so that you can find out who your people are, as Dr. Kim recommended, finding out what that bill is. Connecting, again, someone mentioned community. Is this a community or an institutional issue? Working with organizations within community or reaching out to them to see if you can garner support so they can kind of either help guide you, or you can participate in activities that are going on within your local community. That is, since we're talking about specifically uplifting women, there's a lot of organizations. You got your local Boys and Girls Clubs, the NAACPs. You have, your church groups. There's a lot of local groups and a lot of other startup groups that are doing things within the community. Google and find out what organizations within the community may be doing efforts to help uplift young girls and women and get involved. And if you're so inclined to start your own or to partner up with someone else. So a lot of stuff we can do, things are going on right within our backyard, and we can help to garner that so that we raise the bar.
There it is right there. Dr. Karen McLean, Associate Professor and Department Chair for the Department of Social Work out of Western Connecticut State University. We also are joined by Sister Kim Morrow, who has her master's in education and is one of our great educators. Sisters, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I could not have it without you, but both of you, along with our other sister, Dr. Tawana Gilliard, brought so much brilliance and insight. So I know that there is a necessity for these type of discussions, and God willing, we'll continue to do our part here on The Culture to offer a space and support for it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. This was a great conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's continue the conversation on the other side. As we talked about sisters, let's talk about the young men. Can we talk about this T.I. and his son King controversy and how there are so many things that come out of that situation that we saw on that live stream? I'm going to share with you what the live stream happened, what actually happened, and then I want to get your take on it as well. Plus, today is Giving Tuesday, folks. So if you haven't had a chance to give yet, maybe you should consider the Black Star Network. We'll share with you how you can do that very, very easy. Stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause to too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. What a dynamic conversation that we just had with those three dynamic black women, as we talked about a little bit about the idea of having a special office for missing and murdered black women to be established by the White House. And this is something, again, Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota has put forth based on the Brittany Clardy Act. This Brittany Clardy was the 18-year-old who was tragically found murdered in the trunk of her car in the state of Minnesota, where Representative Omar represents. This was back in 2013. So still a lot of work to be done, a lot of ground to cover, but I'm happy that we were able at least to have some conversation about all of some of the big dynamics of this idea of establishing this office. And folks, let's continue to have the conversation. Many of you were checking in within the chat, and y'all can join us right now on Roland Martin's YouTube page. That's where you'll find the illustrious culture crew. But many of you were talking about going back to some of the old school ways, the old school values of making sure that black girls and black women stay safe within black communities and any other community and spaces that sisters go. And big shout out to y'all. Big shout out to the online culture crew for continuing to do your part to say, look, let's have some different conversations about this. And I'm very serious, folks. I feel like this is one of those issues that we do need to make sure that we could possibly, as they call it, a low-hanging fruit, that we could get some win. Some win. It would be amazing. Before the national election in November of next year, can you imagine President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris announcing that they're going to open this very special office? Maybe this office will be supported by the Department of Justice. They'll support it. I mean, can you imagine that? And I'm not saying this for political reasons or to gain new votes. I'm just simply saying what this will do to push the conversation further along. That still means that we still have a lot of work to do. Like, for example, keep getting the Ebony Alert to be a nationwide alert system and not just a statewide alert system like they have here in California. That means talking about investing in the overall protection and the livelihood of black girls and black women. And guess what, folks? When things like this happen, it opens up the door for other women from other communities to be supported, right? I forgot, I was trying to see which one of you, and I think it was you, Cindy, but I could double check. But someone had pointed out in the chat how there was a new documentary on Hulu called Alaska Daily, and it talked about when indigenous women go missing. I mean, imagine having a conversation like this. I was always taught, folks, that no nation can rise higher than its woman, right? So regardless to how far a country or nation believes it is, if the woman is not protected, if her livelihood is not preserved, if there isn't a voice and a space for her to be heard and seen, regardless of the technological advancements, regardless of the scientific advancements, that country is still going to be considered antiquated because of its treatment to the woman. So this is very, very big, and it's like a small thing that will make a big difference. in the conversation, especially when you're talking about how do we get back to supporting our community? How do we strengthen our community? Y'all want to know how we can do that? We got to support and be there and be present and open up the space for Black women. You got to do it. We got to do it. And as men, we have to readjust our thinking from patriarchal, power dominating thinking about Black women and saying, okay, how can I be a better partner for a Black woman? How can I be a better husband, a better father, a better son? How do we make sure that these things are happening? Now, that's on the women's side. So I just wanted to make those a few points because of that conversation. And again, we're going to do our best to bring those sisters back on in other capacities to have more conversations about the importance of protection of Black women. But let's talk about what we're seeing now with the young men's side. Have y'all been keeping up with the controversy around T.I. and his son King? Well, apparently King, who is 19 years old, the son of T.I. and Tiny, he was at an Atlanta Falcons football game. He went on his live stream and he wanted to share some things about, what's going on in his life. He wanted to let people know who he is and where he came from. But in the midst of that, some things were said where he said that he did not grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth, that he essentially had to live a rough life, that his parents weren't around. And guess what? He said this all while his parents was around. He said this all while he was sitting in that skybox watching the Falcons. He was saying that, and it created a lot of controversy. And once again, unfortunately, we're seeing a father and mother who is at odds with their son, one of their oldest sons. So I want to play this video from the live stream of King Harris, and let's have a conversation about it. Take a look.
King, have you ever woke up with a roach on your face?
Here. No, that's not the goal.
All right, then. There it goes.
Or in your ear.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I got in the neighborhood with me that broke up with roach in your ear.
Y'all want to go to the bando in my neighborhood? Do y'all want to go to the bando? Do y'all want to go to the bando? To make him look better, he said it, he know not true. Silver spoon, I ain't never ate with that day a day in my life.
Nigga, you did have a silver spoon.
Look, Tip used to have to come to my grandma's house because I'm getting in the fight.
You cried like a baby to go to your grandma's house.
Every day.
You to hold your breath.
Every
day. I don't want to be in these gates. I want to be outside in the neighborhood. That's why I want to be over there. But they don't understand that.
Yo, I'm going to tell you the reason why he want to be over there. Y'all ready? Because he can suck and pacify over there. He was 12 years old. He was sucking pacify. He was 12 years old. He couldn't do that in the house.
He cried like a baby. Hold his breath.
Yeah.
They trying to say I was over there trying to suck a passy, but they ain't going to tell you everything like that. They trying to hide it.
Ain't nobody hiding it.
He capping. He capping. Hey. He know I stand on business. He know that. Ain't no nigga ever pulled my car ever in life. I stand on business. You drop me somewhere, I stand on business. You drop me in your hood, I stand on business.
I don't feel like you stand on business.
Yeah. I've been stood on business. I've been stood on business. You want to hide it for the world, I'm going to put it out there for them to see. I want to put up nowhere. You ain't had me put up nowhere. Like, you ain't had me behind the mansion. I was outside doing what I wanted to do.
You was behind that till you cried.
No, I got too much to drink. I drunk too much. Let's go. Get mad because we say the South ain't the suburbs. Then he want to talk about some other like this being sick. This being sick. No, I'm being real. You lying. You up here flagging. You're capping. You capping. I know you capping. I know you. What's wrong with y'all? Why y'all doing that to me? Y'all know me. You know I stand on business. You know I stand on business. Why you even letting somebody play with me like that? Why you letting somebody play with me like that? Why you letting him play with me like that? Why you letting him play with me like that? No, ain't no joking. Ain't no joking. What do you mean?
You are embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing yourself. You are embarrassing yourself. You are embarrassing yourself. Man, what is you talking about?
Get off me, like, man, get off me,
Well, you can't do nothing with me. Ain't shit you can do with me.
All right, crew. Let me just tell y'all. You know, I see on one side, if you are a parent or if you're taking care of another human being, another little human being, a child, right? I don't care whether you're the biological parent, the aunt, uncle, niece, grandparents, or whoever, right? Because we got all different types of family structures now. But if you are responsible in taking care of another human being, right, you understand that we all want something better for our children. And what I saw in this particular live stream is a young brother who's trying to figure it all out. He's trying to get from under, he's 19 years old. He's trying to get from under the shadows of his parents, his father, a major hip hop artist, right? A legend in the game. His mother, another recording artist, a legend in her own right. So he's trying to make a name for himself. But then for me, a couple of things that stuck out for me, I want to hear what y'all got to say on this, crew. The things that stuck out for me is that the things that he said that he had gone through, and T.I. and Tiny and others were trying to tell him, like, look, man, you chose to, you said you wanted to be in them streets or you wanted to live that life. But I never understand why when you try to get out of the street life, you want to run back to it. I just don't understand it. And the other thing is, this is something that we've seen with other famous parents and their children, that these children along the way are not balanced. Emotionally, mentally, they aren't balanced. I don't know whether it's because they grew up too fast or they've been exposed to too much or what the case is, they got too much privilege, but something is wrong. Something is wrong. All right, let me go down the list because so many of y'all checked in and shared your thoughts on this. You said Lana King was out of line. You first said these entitled kids, they got thinking they are one half hood and one half grown. Got it twisted. I'm glad T.I. sold him up. You also say King, but this is what happens when you focus on money instead of family. I equally blame T.I. and Tiny. Get control. Mm. Mm. That's a hell of a thing. D.L. Hughley made this point when he was asked by TMZ News what he thought of the situation. And I thought this thing was very interesting because I think he speaks directly into some truth of it. But when his response was essentially that it's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing when you try to do all of this for your children. He said he's known T.I. and Tiny for years. He'd see them work hard, and you try to provide this different life for your children that you were not afforded, and then your child gets on Instagram or social media and says things like this and does things like this just for clicks, not understanding that where your parents came from, they never want you to be exposed to. And I don't understand that. This is a cultural thing in our community like I've never seen in any other community. Like we quote unquote get out of the hood, but then we always got to find our way back to the hood to maintain some level of credibility. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All right, let me see something here. Let me see something. Who else do we have here? Because folks are checking in. Pastor Damon Blissett, you said, brother, ungrateful. I'm just saying with the hands over the face emoji, right? Tiana, you said this kid is ungrateful. Conscious thought, you also said something. You said, and for this conversation, that boy is delusional. But you, as Brother Damon had pointed out, that you were the one that talked about the Alaska Daily Hulu documentary. So I appreciate you for saying that. But you said this boy is delusional. Cindy, you said in a skybox talking like that. Was he on drugs? I don't know. I don't know the little brother. I don't know if he was high. Tiana, you said somebody didn't get a spanking as a child. Andre, you asked, what the hell did I just tune into? He tuned into the culture. Where we talk about what's going on in the culture, and it includes hip hop. But as much as y'all might think, well, why are we talking about this? Because one, this is what folks are talking about. So we try to do that on the news side. But then on the cultural side, the conversation about children who are raised a certain way, who feel a sense of entitlement, that conversation, like it doesn't even have to, you don't even have to be T.I. Tiny. Think about us. If you get a great job, great opportunity, employment opportunity, right? And you have a chance to break a vicious generational cycle of poverty, you have a chance to not just break the cycle of poverty, of educational stagnation, where you might be the first person to go to college in your family, you get a good job, you get to move out in a better neighborhood, you might own you're the first person in your family to go from being a renter to an owner. And then you raising up your children, you might put those children in private school or in a certain charter school or in a special school, but they're outside of the public school space. And you do all of this and your children come back at you and it's like, oh man, I never grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. My parents didn't give me all of the benefits. Y'all kept me in a gated community. Craziest. Cindy, you said you speechless, Farajii. We all are. I am speechless, Cindy. I'm speechless, but at the same time, I'm not surprised because we see this type of behavior from more and more children of rich parents. Whether we don't know what the ups and downs of the Will and Jada Smith children, what they've gone through, or Beyonce's children, Beyonce and Jay-Z's children, or Snoop Dogg's sons and their children. And we don't really think about those things, right? We don't really talk about them, but that's another generation that's been exposed. What is the children of Diddy, his sons, and all of his sons and children? Now that their father's in the spotlight for horrific acts, mental health issues. So yeah, I'm speechless, Cindy. Definitely speechless. You are not a victim. You said the amount of disrespect is crazy. Willie Frazier, thank you. You're not a victim. Big brother Willie Frazier, you said that's the kind of thing that happens when you name your child King. That's what happens. See, that gives us a lesson for us, right? Because some of us, we run from struggle. We never want to have our children to taste struggle. And as a result of that, then you are essentially saying, hey, I want them to know that everything they have in life that could be provided for them, they don't have to want anything and all of that, which all sounds good on paper. I've learned that as a parent. It all sounds good on paper, but then you got to ask yourself this question: am I creating a monster? See what I'm saying? Because when you grew up in the 80s or the 90s and you experienced struggle, if you grew up in the 60s or the 70s, you experienced trouble, guess what? That kept you humble. Man, oh my. Let me tell you, I was just having this conversation yesterday. I'm going to take a quick pause after this point. I was having a conversation yesterday and the thought came to me, life will humble your ass. Come on. Can the church say amen? Can the crew say amen? Life will humble you. So you might be thinking all of these things about who you are and who your parents are and and what you deserve and what you're entitled to. Life will humble that ass real quick, real quick. And guess what? Some of us, we have been going through so much struggle that we hate struggle, but not knowing that struggle is necessary for our overall development and cultivation to become a balanced human being. You cannot have everything that you want. It can't be all peaches and cream. It got to have some struggle because that's what makes the human being whole. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more conversation about this. And of course, your thoughts. Stay with us. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about T.I. and his son King Harris, who shared some thoughts on his, his social media pages, and it has caught the attention of everybody as folks are having the conversation about entitlement. The folks are having the conversation about privileged children with famous and rich parents and all of that. As King Harris kind of laid out there that he didn't want to be in a gated community. He wanted to go out into the streets. That he even said that, he was his own man. He stand on his business. And I think a lot of this is coming from the young man hubris. You know what I mean? That energy. You're 18, 19. You start to smell yourself, as the old people say. You start to puff the chest out at your dad a little bit. You think your voice getting a little deeper, so you thinking you own something. Let me tell y'all, man. Let me tell y'all something, man. See, this is what happens. And look, it's not about not just having a man in the house, but you got to have a man and a woman to provide checks and balances for children. Because when children go a certain way, right, part of my thinking about parenthood is that we're not going to tell you who you are and how to think, but we're going to guide you. You know what I'm saying? We're going to guide you. So when you do seem to go one way, you got somebody to check you, and then you go another way, somebody else will check you. But it's guiding for you to become a balanced human being, right? A decent person with morals and values and characters, thinking beyond just yourself. And I think that this situation is indicative of where a lot of children are in 2023. And if you have children under the age of 21, 20 years old, and they're still living in your house, y'all know what I'm talking about. I mean, I got moments where my 10-year-old son wants to assert his independence and his grown manness. He wants to be the grown guy. I want to be a man. And I keep telling him, son, if a man is one who takes care of responsibilities, now, if you can't even clean up your room, how you going to talk about you a man and you don't take you don't want to take out the trash, you don't want to do nothing. You just, I'm a man, and you just sit around. Yeah, you a man, all right. You know what I'm saying? Daddy does these things, but you got to see that. But it's something that we're seeing, and more, even though we aspire to being those type of folks, I'm talking about us as adults. I want to be rich, I want to be this, I want to be that. We cannot forget the children in that pursuit to be all of that. Damon, brother Damon, you said the boy's bread ain't done. I never heard. I never heard that, brother David. The boy's bread ain't done. Well, they say. What did they? Don't they actually say that though? Don't they say that you're for males, for boys, that their brain isn't fully developed until 21 or something? I think that's what they say. I think that's what they say. Um, Anastasia, you said Diddy sent all his kids to college and they work in his business that he's building. Your child needs their own space and activities. All right. But looking at the situation now, Anastasia, all of the controversy around Diddy, as much as you send your child to college, as much as you have them in your, and this is something that I had to think about as I'm, being a parent to my son. I can send him to the best schools. I can get him involved in some of the best programs for social and emotional, for his growth and development down the road. But one thing that I don't think we put enough emphasis on, and this is interesting that you brought this up, Anastasia. One thing I don't think we put enough emphasis on is character development. How to be a good person. Like, as much as you can go to the finest schools, you can still be a jerk, right? As much as you might work in the best companies, guess what? You could still be morally bankrupt and deprived. Like, how do you be a good person? And I remember telling my son this one day because I was like, son, I don't care about your grades if you aren't a good person. If you don't care about people, if you don't take care of your little sister, if you don't take care of the things that are important, like, how do you be a good person? Because that's what's needed. We don't need more black children in high profile spaces, or black boys in sports, or black girls in fashion and music and all of those things, and they are not genuinely good people. Who cares? Who cares? If I'm going to the best schools and I find out I'm going to Diddy and I find out my father is being accused of sexual assault, like, the schools ain't going to take care of that part of me. How do you be a good person? Let me see something. OG Blockchain, you checked in and said cognitive development. Absolutely. Cognitive development. Kathleen Davis, you said in California, you are legally a man at 18 years old. He should want to leave home. Let me tell you something. I don't care what, and this is the part I go real hard, y'all. I don't give a damn about what the law said. How many of us truly believe that at 18 in 2023 you are a full-grown adult? I'll wait. How many of us truly believe this? That in 2023, the average 18-year-old is a full-grown adult and ready to take on being an adult in this world? Hell no. Most people actually, now I think the age has actually changed and has been actually raised to like 25 until you start to really get your bearings. 18, send them out into the world. Oh, just son, daughter. Can you imagine sending your 18-year-old daughter and say, well, sweetheart, it's 18, you're 18, 19 years old. I think it's time for you to fly from the nest here. In a world like today, see, we gotta, as a community and as a people, we have to change the culture. We do not have to apply everything of this world onto our situation. We can say, no. Maybe 25, 30, 40 years ago, 18 years old was a different thing. But nowadays, at 18, are you really an adult at 18? 18, you still got some students that can't even literally read. They are functionally illiterate. But we want to send them out to the world, tell them to build a life for themselves, tell them to get at 18? Come on, man. OG Blockchain, you said mama sent me on my way at 17, but she was there. Yeah. I'm not kicking my son out till that man is out of college and he got something set up for him where he got an apartment or he say, look, mom, dad, I'm saving for a house or something. I'm not pushing him out because well, son, it's 18 years old and it's time to hit the road, Jack. Like, what is that? All right. Coretta, my sister, you said I was a young woman in my 20s, grown ass woman from 30 on and up. Come on, there we go. There we go. Tiana, you said I coach 18 to 23-year-olds on a pep squad. They are not the 18, 23-year-olds of yesterday. Hell no, they are not. Jamie P, you said, nah, think about the people with generational wealth that were raised within a quote unquote family compound or within or WE. And I'm not sure what the WE stand for, Jamie. Let me know. But you said we can benefit from staying together in a similar way. Keep the cash in our own hands. Absolutely. Absolutely. Kathleen, you said, mind your business. My son bought his own house at 23, married at 19 like his dad. Well, that's all good, Kathleen. But I'm saying as in collective, are we ready for that? What we're seeing here, folks, is that there's got to be a different conversation nowadays as we wrap up. There's got to be a different conversation. Conscious thought, my brother, you said, I wonder if King Harris actually knows his father's entire life story and life trajectory. I believe if he did, he would not spew and spout the nonsense that came out of his mouth. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the point. And as we close out, I think that's an excellent point, Conscious thought, that we should tell our life story to our children, the ups and the downs. One of the things that I've learned is that, something that we struggled with 20, 30 years ago as parents struggle with is being able to being able to fully express their full story, being honest, being authentic, and say, look, it wasn't always good for me. I grew up like this. I grew up like that. Grandma was working. Granddad wasn't there. But we had to persevere. Share that part of yourself. You know how many children probably don't know their parents' life story? But if they did, they will be empowered by it. And then they will see you and they will respect you, or they can relate they can relate to you because your life story represents a life. If your child is growing up in a quote unquote privilege and you never tell them your story, how will they ever be aware of the struggle? How will they know that life can be both up and down? That you have to make a conscious decision on whether you are going to lead in your life, or you want to be followed, or you're a follower of life. That you're always trying to play catch up with life. Like, how will they know? How will they know what's really inside of them if they don't know the struggles, the trials, the pain of their parents? And I agree with you there 1,000%, Conscious thought. If King Harris knew what his mother and his father have gone through to get to that place of position, I bet you he would have a different view. But he may not know. Because we don't want to impose that on our children, right? For us new next generation parents, they call us now. We don't want to impose that on our children. We want to keep the struggle away from them. No, the children should be able to see the struggle because they need to adapt, just like how we adapted when we were seeing our parents struggle. When I see my dad struggle, when I see my aunties and uncles, and when I see my friends' parents struggle, it gave me a different sense of life. It does something for my character development. And I know we don't want to show our weakness, but sometimes it's good to show your weakness to your children because that's how they find their strength. All right, let me stop here, man. Let's stop here, man. Because this thing is deep. And that's why I say we should talk about it. We should have conversations about it because we got another generation that we have to be held accountable for, that we're responsible to. And it's important that they understand that being in this place that we're in, being this adult, being this decision maker, it took a lot of pain, it took a lot of struggle, it took a lot of trials, but we were able to overcome it, and they have the same ability to do the same. So it's not a bad thing. Life is full of ups and downs, and it's how you handle the downs that will keep you up. What's your attitude? What's your spirit? What's your mindset? So, some things for us to consider as I'm thinking about this. I'm sure you will be hearing more about King Harris on social media, but in those conversations, let us bring some light. This ain't just about one child. This is an indicative of a culture that is so strong in our community that we need to change it and do something about. So I appreciate y'all for being a part of that part of the discussion. Very quickly as we close out, today is Giving Tuesday. If you did not have a chance to give, please make sure you consider Black Star Network. We would love to have you as one of our great investors. We are doing the work that many people thought that could not be done, but it has been done over these past couple of years. And so I encourage you, I implore you to give something today to Black-owned media. Go to our website today at Black Star Network, download the app, follow us on social media, but give something to help us power us along in this digital movement. I thank you all for joining me for this for today's show. I thank my fantastic guests for joining me, those dynamic sisters, and I certainly thank my production team for making the show possible. Make sure y'all stick around because up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon, family. Have a great afternoon, crew. Peace.